The crystal chandelier cast warm light over the mahogany dining table as I arranged the last of the dinner plates. Margaret Harrison's voice cut through the kitchen like a blade. "David, remind me again why we're letting the help eat with us." I paused, my hands steady on the gravy boat. After 3 years of marriage to her son Tom, I should have been used to this. But Margaret's cruelty still stung every single time. Tom appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. "Mom, please. Sarah's family." "Family?" Margaret's laugh was sharp. "She's a cleaning woman, David. I've seen her scrubbing floors at that office building downtown." She turned to her daughter Jessica, who was checking her phone. "Tell me again why my successful son married the help." Jessica looked up with that familiar smirk. Maybe he felt sorry for her? You know how Tom always had a soft spot for charity cases. I continued setting the table in silence. They had no idea that the office building Margaret mentioned was actually one of 12 commercial properties I owned through Harbor Point Real Estate Holdings. They assumed that because I wore simple clothes and did my own cleaning, I was poor. The truth was far more complicated. "Sarah, dear." Margaret's voice dripped with false sweetness as the family gathered around the table. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable eating in the kitchen? This conversation might be over your head." Tom's face reddened. "Mom, that's enough." "It's fine," I said quietly, taking my seat. "I'm exactly where I belong." Margaret's sister Linda arrived with her husband Robert, both dressed in expensive suits that screamed new money. They owned a small accounting firm and never let anyone forget it. "Oh good, the whole family's here," Linda announced, then stopped short when she saw me. "Well, almost the whole family." The table erupted in knowing chuckles. Even Tom's father, usually the quiet peacemaker, couldn't hide his disapproving expression. "So Sarah," Robert began, cutting into his turkey, "still cleaning offices? It must be so fulfilling, doing such honest work." "Very honest," I replied evenly. "I just think it's wonderful," Linda added with mock enthusiasm, "how Tom supports your little career. Not many men would be comfortable with their wives doing manual labor." Margaret nodded sagely. "Though I do worry about the long-term implications. What happens when Tom wants to entertain clients? Or when we have important family events? Like this one?" I asked. "Well, exactly. This house has been in our family for generations. It represents something. Legacy. Status. Standards." Margaret's voice grew louder. "We can't have the cleaning lady at our table thinking she belongs with people who've actually accomplished something." The room fell silent except for the clink of silverware. Tom's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. "That's enough," he said finally. But Margaret was just getting started. "No, Thomas, it's not enough. You're 35 years old. You have a Harvard MBA and a corner office at Morrison & Associates. You could have married anyone. A doctor, a lawyer, someone from a good family. Instead, you chose this." She gestured at me dismissively. Jessica chimed in. "I mean, look at her hands. You can tell she does manual labor. And those clothes." She shuddered dramatically. "The thrift store special," Linda whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. I looked around the table at these people who had spent 3 years making me feel small. Tom's face was bright red with embarrassment and anger, but he stayed silent. He always stayed silent when it mattered most. "You know what the worst part is?" Margaret continued, warming to her theme. "She probably thinks she hit the lottery. Married a successful man, gets to live in a nice house, doesn't have to worry about money anymore." "Gold digger tactics," Robert nodded knowingly. "Classic." "I wouldn't go that far," Margaret said with false generosity. "I think she genuinely believes she loves him. But love isn't enough, is it? Not when there's such a gap in breeding and education." The chandelier above us suddenly felt too bright, too heavy. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting for me to break, to cry, to run away like I had so many times before. Instead, I reached for my phone. "What are you doing?" Jessica asked with a laugh. "Calling your supervisor to ask for Thanksgiving off." I pulled up my banking app and turned the screen toward Margaret. "Actually, I'm checking on some property investments." Margaret barely glanced at it. "Very funny, dear. What's next? Are you going to tell us you're secretly rich?" "No," I said calmly. I'm going to show you. I opened the mortgage documents I kept in my phone's secure folder. The deed to 847 Maple Street, the very house we were sitting in. Margaret's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. What is that? The deed to this house, I said, setting the phone in the center of the table. Which I purchased 18 months ago when you were facing foreclosure. The silence was deafening. Robert leaned forward, squinting at the screen. That can't be right. Harbor Point Real Estate Holdings, I said clearly. My company. I bought this house for $2.3 million cash to save it from auction. I swiped to show the bank statements. The same way I've been quietly covering the property taxes, maintenance, and your credit card debt for the past year and a half. Margaret's face had gone completely white. You're lying. I pulled up another document. The loan modification papers you signed 6 months ago? You thought they came from the bank. They came from me. I showed them the payment history. Every month, $4,200 goes from my account to keep this house in the family. Jessica's mouth was hanging open. But you're just a cleaning lady. I finished. I own Harbor Point Real Estate Holdings. 12 commercial properties, including the Morrison building where Tom works. The office cleaning Margaret saw me doing? I was inspecting my own property. Tom was staring at me in complete shock. Sarah, why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to see who you really were, I said quietly. All of you. I needed to know if my husband would defend me when his family attacked me. If his love was stronger than their approval. The color was slowly returning to Margaret's face, but now it was bright red with embarrassment and anger. This is ridiculous. You can't possibly. I swiped to my portfolio overview. Net worth, $47 million. Harbor Point owns properties valued at $31 million. The rest is in diversified investments. I looked directly at her. Margaret, you've been living in my house, eating food I paid for, and insulting the woman who kept your family from losing everything. Robert was frantically scrolling through his own phone. Harbor Point Real Estate. Jesus Christ, it's real. It's all real. The Morrison building lease alone generates $180,000 monthly, I continued. Tom's company pays me rent for his corner office. Has been for 2 years. Linda looked like she might faint. But, your clothes, your car? I drive a Honda because it's reliable. I wear simple clothes because expensive ones get dirty when you're inspecting construction sites. I stood up slowly. I don't need designer labels to prove my worth. Unlike some people. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. You let us treat you like garbage? Yes. For 3 years, I listened to every cruel comment, every dismissive joke, every assumption about my character and my worth. I looked around the table. And not once, not one single time, did my husband stand up for me. Tom reached for my hand, but I stepped back. Sarah, I had no idea. That's exactly the problem, Tom. You had no idea who you married because you never bothered to ask. You just assumed, like your family, that a woman who cleaned buildings couldn't possibly be intelligent or successful. The room was so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady and clear. Margaret, you have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. I'm selling this house. You can't. Jessica burst out. This house has been in our family for generations. Actually, it was in foreclosure because your family couldn't manage money properly. I saved it once. I won't do it again. I picked up my purse. Tom, we need to talk. But not here, and not with an audience that spent 3 years treating me like hired help. Margaret finally found her voice. Wait. Please. We didn't know. I turned back to face her. You didn't know my net worth. But you knew I was a human being deserving of basic respect. The money doesn't change the fact that you chose to be cruel to someone you thought was vulnerable. Sarah, Tom said desperately, please don't leave like this. I'm not leaving, I said, walking toward the door. I'm making a choice. The same choice you made every time you sat quietly while your family humiliated me. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. The difference is, my choice comes with consequences. As I walked out into the cool November air, I could hear the chaos erupting behind me. Raised voices, accusations, the crash of what sounded like breaking china. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. The Morrison Building lease renewal is ready for signature. $200,000 monthly for the next 5 years. I smiled for the first time all day. Tomorrow, I had a meeting with Tom's boss about expanding into the Morrison Building's vacant floors. Something told me rent prices were about to go up significantly. After all, a successful businesswoman deserved to be treated with respect, even by her own husband's family. Especially by her own husband's family.